The Pyramids of Giza, the untold story. Welcome. Today I am going to tell you a story that will change everything you thought you knew about ancient Egypt. You might have heard about the Pyramids of Giza before. Maybe you know them as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, massive tombs built by slaves, or mysterious structures that have stood for thousands of years in the Egyptian desert. But today I am going to tell you the real story. The story that goes far beyond what your history textbooks ever told you. The Pyramids of Giza are not just ancient tombs, they are a testament to human ambition, mathematical genius, and a civilization so advanced that even today, with all our modern technology, we still cannot fully understand how they did it. This is the story of Khufu, the pharaoh who dared to dream of immortality, and the 100,000 men who turned that dream into the greatest architectural achievement in human history. After listening to this, you will be shocked to know how 4,500 years ago, without cranes, without computers, without any modern machinery, ancient Egyptians built something so perfect that it has survived wars, earthquakes, and the erosion of time itself. And this is not just a history lesson. This is a perfect story for your English listening practice. So sit back, relax, and let me take you on a journey back in time. A journey of power, mystery, engineering genius, and an obsession with eternal life that created one of the most iconic structures ever built by human hands. Now, let's begin. The birth of a god-king. To understand the Pyramids of Giza, we must go back in time to the year 2589 BCE. Imagine ancient Egypt at the height of its power. The Nile River, the lifeblood of civilization, flows through a land of unimaginable wealth. Golden temples rise above the desert sands, priests chant ancient prayers to the gods, and farmers work the fertile black soil that appears every year after the river floods. This was the Old Kingdom of Egypt, a time when pharaohs were not just kings, they were considered living gods on earth. In this world of divine rulers and eternal temples, a young prince named Khufu was about to inherit the throne. He was the son of Pharaoh Sneferu, a king who had already built 3 pyramids during his reign. From the moment Khufu was born, he was taught that he was not an ordinary human being. He was told that he was the son of Ra, the sun god himself. He was told that when he died, he would join the gods in the afterlife and sail across the sky in a golden boat for all eternity. But there was one problem. To reach the afterlife, to become immortal, to live forever among the gods, a pharaoh needed one thing: a perfect tomb. Not just any tomb, it had to be the greatest structure ever built. It had to be so magnificent, so enormous, so perfect that the gods themselves would be impressed. His father Sneferu had tried. He had built the Bent Pyramid, the Red Pyramid, and the Pyramid at Meidum. But young Khufu looked at his father's pyramids and thought, I can do better. I will do better. I will build something that will last forever. When Khufu became pharaoh around 2589 BCE, he was probably in his 20s. He was intelligent, ambitious, and obsessed with one singular goal: immortality. Unlike his father, who built multiple pyramids, Khufu decided to focus all of Egypt's resources, all of its wealth, all of its manpower on one single project. He would build the largest, tallest, most perfect pyramid the world had ever seen. He would build the Great Pyramid of Giza. But before we talk about the pyramid itself, you need to understand something crucial. Khufu was not a cruel tyrant who enslaved millions to build his tomb. That is a myth, a story told by ancient Greek historians thousands of years later and repeated by Hollywood movies. The truth is far more interesting. The truth about the workers. For centuries, people believed that the pyramids were built by slaves. We imagined thousands of men in chains, whipped and beaten, forced to drag massive stones across the desert until they died of exhaustion. This image is dramatic, and it makes for good movies, but it is completely wrong. Modern archaeology has proven something remarkable. The pyramids were built by paid workers. Yes, you heard that right. Paid workers. In the 1990s, archaeologists discovered the workers' village near the pyramids. They found bakeries that could produce thousands of loaves of bread every day. They found breweries making beer. They found dormitories where workers lived. They found medical facilities where injured workers received treatment. They even found graffiti written by the workers themselves, things like "The Friends of Khufu" and "The Drunkards of Menkaure." These were not slaves. These were skilled laborers, craftsmen, engineers, and ordinary farmers who worked on the pyramid during the flood season when they couldn't farm their land. It was considered an honor to work on the pharaoh's pyramid. Why? Because Pharaoh was a god. Building his pyramid meant you were helping a god achieve immortality, and in return, you would be blessed. You would be fed, paid, and when you died, you might even be buried near the pyramid itself, which would help you in your own journey to the afterlife. Approximately 100,000 workers participated in building the Great Pyramid, though not all at once. Teams rotated, working in 3-month shifts. They were organized into crews with names like the Enduring Crew or the Victorious Crew. Each crew competed with others to see who could move the most stones, who could work the fastest, who could be the best. Can you imagine 100,000 men working together with nothing but copper tools, wooden sledges, and ropes, building something that would stand for over 4,500 years? This was not slavery. This was national pride. This was devotion. This was ancient Egypt's version of the moon landing. Now, here is where the story becomes truly mind-blowing. The Great Pyramid of Giza is not just big, it is mathematically perfect in ways that seem almost impossible for ancient people to achieve.
Let me give you some numbers that will shock you. The Great Pyramid originally stood 146.6 meters tall. That's about 481 feet, or as tall as a 40-story building. For over 3,800 years, it was the tallest man-made structure in the entire world. Think about that. For nearly 4,000 years, nothing humans built was taller than Khufu's pyramid. It wasn't until 1311 CE, when the Lincoln Cathedral was built in England, that any structure surpassed its height. The base of the pyramid covers 13 acres of land. That's about the size of 7 football fields. Each side of the base is approximately 230 meters long. And here's the incredible part. The 4 sides of the pyramid are aligned almost perfectly with the 4 cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west. The accuracy is incredible. The northern side is off by only 3/60ths of 1 degree. That level of precision requires sophisticated astronomical observations and mathematical calculations. And there's more. The ratio of the pyramid's perimeter to its height is almost exactly 2 pi. The ancient Egyptians somehow encoded the mathematical constant pi into the structure's design, and pi wasn't even officially discovered until thousands of years later by the Greeks. Some researchers have pointed out even stranger coincidences. The pyramid's location at 29.9792458 degrees north latitude is extremely close to the speed of light in a vacuum, 299,792,458 meters per second. Is this just a coincidence, or did the ancient Egyptians know something we don't? The mystery of construction. Now comes the biggest mystery of all. How did they actually build it? Modern engineers have tried to figure this out for decades, and we still don't have a definitive answer. We have theories, educated guesses, but no absolute proof. Here's what we do know. The limestone blocks that make up most of the pyramid came from quarries located nearby on the Giza Plateau. Workers used copper chisels and saws to cut the blocks from the bedrock. Then they used wooden wedges, which they soaked in water. The water made the wood expand, creating enough pressure to crack the stone along the desired line. Once the blocks were cut, workers had to transport them to the construction site. But how? The most accepted theory is that they used wooden sledges. They placed the stone blocks on large wooden sleds, then teams of men pulled them using ropes. But here's the clever part. They poured water on the sand in front of the sledge. This made the sand harder and reduced friction by up to 50%, making it much easier to pull the heavy stones. In 2014, physicists from the University of Amsterdam actually tested this theory and proved it works. The ancient Egyptians were using physics principles that we only rediscovered thousands of years later. But transporting the blocks horizontally is one thing. How did they lift 2.5-ton blocks 146 meters into the air? This is where we have several theories, but no certainty. Theory 1. External ramps. Some experts believe the Egyptians built a massive ramp that spiraled around the pyramid as it grew taller. Workers would drag the blocks up this ramp. The problem with this theory is that such a ramp would need to be enormous, possibly requiring more material than the pyramid itself. Theory 2. Internal ramps. French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin proposed that the Egyptians built an internal ramp inside the pyramid itself and spiral corridor that went up through the interior structure. This is an elegant solution, but we have no physical evidence of such internal ramps. Theory 3. Lever systems and counterweights. Some researchers believe the Egyptians used a series of lever systems and counterweights to lift the blocks from one level to the next. This would require incredible engineering knowledge, but would be possible with the tools they had. The truth? We may never know for certain. And maybe that's part of the pyramid's eternal appeal. Even with all our modern technology, satellites, ground-penetrating radar, and computer simulations, the ancient Egyptians managed to do something that still puzzles us today: the incredible precision. Let me tell you something that will absolutely blow your mind. The blocks of the Great Pyramid fit together so perfectly that you cannot slide a piece of paper between them. In many places, the mortar joints are only 0.5 millimeters thick. That's half a millimeter. That's thinner than a credit card. We're talking about 2.3 million blocks, each weighing thousands of kilograms, fitted together with near-perfect precision. How did they achieve this? They used copper tools, wooden mallets, and sand as an abrasive. They would place a block, check it with measuring tools, then grind and polish the surface until it fit perfectly against the block below it. The original outer casing of the pyramid was even more impressive. The entire structure was covered in brilliant white limestone casing stones, polished to a mirror-like finish. These casing stones were so reflective that the pyramid would shine like a beacon in the sunlight, visible from the mountains of Israel over 100 kilometers away. The ancient Egyptians called it Echet, which means glorious light. Imagine standing in the desert 4,500 years ago and seeing this massive, gleaming white pyramid, perfectly geometric, catching the sunlight and reflecting it across the landscape. It must have looked like a structure from the gods themselves, because to the ancient Egyptians, that's exactly what it was.
Sadly, most of these beautiful white casing stones were stripped away over the centuries, reused to build other structures in Cairo. Only a few remain at the very top of the pyramid, giving us a glimpse of the original glory. Inside the pharaoh's eternal home. The exterior of the Great Pyramid is astonishing, but the interior is where Khufu's true vision of immortality reveals itself. The entrance to the pyramid is on the north face, about 17 meters above ground level. When you enter, you walk down a narrow descending passage that goes deep into the bedrock beneath the pyramid. This passage is less than 1.2 meters high, forcing you to crouch or crawl. The walls are smooth limestone, and the air is hot and thick. This descending passage leads to a subterranean chamber carved into the solid bedrock, about 30 meters below the base of the pyramid. This chamber is rough and unfinished. Many archaeologists believe this was originally intended to be Khufu's burial chamber, but he changed his mind during construction.
If you turn around and go back up, you'll find another passage, the ascending passage. This corridor slopes upward at a 26-degree angle, leading to the very heart of the pyramid. Like the descending passage, it's narrow and uncomfortable, barely wide enough for one person to climb through. The ascending passage leads to two locations. The first is the Queen's Chamber, though it was probably never intended for any queen. This chamber sits almost exactly at the horizontal center of the pyramid. It's about 5.7 meters long and 5.2 meters wide, with a pointed ceiling that rises to about 6.2 meters at its peak. The walls are smooth limestone, and there's a niche in the eastern wall whose purpose remains unknown. But the real treasure, the ultimate destination, lies further up. The Grand Gallery. From the ascending passage, if you continue upward, you enter one of the most extraordinary architectural spaces in the ancient world, the Grand Gallery. The Grand Gallery is breathtaking. It's 47 meters long and rises at the same 26-degree angle as the ascending passage, but instead of being a cramped tunnel, it soars to a height of 8.6 meters. The walls are corbelled, meaning they consist of 7 layers of limestone blocks, each layer projecting slightly inward as they rise. This creates a dramatic narrowing effect that draws your eye upward toward the King's Chamber. Walking through the Grand Gallery, you can feel the weight of the pyramid above you. You're inside millions of tons of stone, deep within a structure that was built to last forever. The walls are smooth, the angles precise, and despite being 4,500 years old, the Grand Gallery still stands exactly as the ancient builders designed it. At the top of the Grand Gallery, you reach a low passage that leads to the King's Chamber, the true heart of the pyramid, the room where Pharaoh Khufu intended to spend eternity. The King's Chamber. The King's Chamber is a rectangular room measuring 10.5 meters long, 5.2 meters wide, and 5.8 meters high. Every surface is made of red granite brought from quarries in Aswan, over 800 kilometers to the south. Transporting these massive granite blocks such a distance, then lifting them into the center of the pyramid, was an achievement that still amazes engineers today. The chamber contains only one object, a rectangular granite sarcophagus. This is where Khufu's mummified body was meant to rest for eternity. The sarcophagus is larger than the entrance passages, which means it must have been placed in the chamber during construction. The builders designed the room around it. But here's the tragic truth. Khufu's mummy has never been found. The Great Pyramid was robbed in ancient times, probably within a few hundred years of its completion. Whoever broke in stole everything: the pharaoh's body, the golden treasures, the precious artifacts meant to accompany him to the afterlife. All that remains is the empty sarcophagus, damaged and lidless. Above the King's Chamber, though, lies something truly remarkable: 5 stress-relieving chambers. These are empty spaces built one above the other, separated by massive granite beams. Each beam weighs up to 80 tons. The purpose of these chambers is to distribute the enormous weight of the pyramid away from the King's Chamber, preventing it from collapsing under millions of tons of stone. The builders' understanding of physics and engineering was extraordinary. They knew exactly how much weight the King's Chamber would bear, and they designed a system to protect it. And it worked. After 4,500 years, despite earthquakes and the settling of the structure, the King's Chamber remains intact. The mysterious shafts. One of the strangest features of the Great Pyramid are 4 narrow shafts that run from the King's Chamber and Queen's Chamber toward the outer surface of the pyramid. These shafts are only about 20 by 20 centimeters square, far too small for any human to crawl through. For years, Egyptologists believed they were air shafts designed to ventilate the burial chambers. But that theory has problems. Why would you need air shafts in a sealed tomb? Modern research suggests a different purpose. These shafts were oriented towards specific stars. The northern shaft from the king's chamber points toward the circumpolar stars, which the ancient Egyptians associated with eternal life because they never set below the horizon. The southern shaft points toward Orion's belt, which the ancient Egyptians identified with Osiris, the god of the afterlife. These weren't air shafts, they were soul shafts. The ancient Egyptians believed that the pharaoh's spirit would travel through these passageways, ascending to join the gods in the heavens. In the 1990s, a small robot was sent up the southern shaft from the queen's chamber. After crawling for 65 meters, the robot encountered a limestone door with copper handles. What lies beyond that door? We still don't know. In 2002, another robot drilled through the door, only to find another door behind it. The mystery remains unsolved. The Pyramid Complex. The Great Pyramid didn't stand alone. It was part of a massive complex that included multiple structures, all designed to serve Khufu in the afterlife.
To the east of the pyramid stood a mortuary temple, where priests would perform daily rituals to honor the dead pharaoh and ensure his eternal life. A long causeway, over 800 meters long, connected the mortuary temple to a valley temple down near the Nile River. This causeway was covered and decorated with beautiful reliefs showing scenes from Khufu's life and reign. Around the Great Pyramid were 3 smaller pyramids built for Khufu's wives. There were also boat pits, long trenches cut into the bedrock. In 1954, archaeologists discovered one of these pits still sealed, and inside was a completely intact wooden boat, carefully disassembled into 1,224 pieces. This was Khufu's solar boat, the vessel he would use to sail across the sky with the sun god Ra for all eternity. The boat was made of cedar wood from Lebanon, carefully crafted without a single nail, held together with rope and wooden pegs. When reconstructed, it measured 43.6 meters long. It's now displayed in a museum near the pyramid, one of the oldest and most complete boats ever discovered. The Sphinx, guardian of the plateau. No discussion of Giza would be complete without mentioning the Great Sphinx, the massive limestone statue with the body of a lion and the head of a human. The Sphinx is enormous. It's 73 meters long and 20 meters tall, carved directly from the bedrock of the Giza Plateau. For centuries, historians believed that Khufu's son, Pharaoh Khafre, commissioned the Sphinx, and that the face represents Khafre himself. But some researchers have proposed something controversial. What if the Sphinx is much older than the pyramids? The Sphinx shows signs of water erosion, deep vertical grooves in the limestone that could only have been caused by heavy rainfall. But Egypt hasn't experienced that kind of rainfall in thousands of years, not since the end of the last ice age, around 10,000 BCE. If the Sphinx shows water erosion, could it have been built much earlier than we thought? This theory is highly controversial and rejected by most Egyptologists. The mainstream view is that the erosion patterns can be explained by wind, sand, and other environmental factors over thousands of years. But the debate continues, adding another layer of mystery to the Giza Plateau. What we do know is that the Sphinx was considered a guardian. It faces directly east, watching the sunrise every morning. Between its paws is a stone tablet erected by Pharaoh Thutmose IV in 1401 BCE, more than 1,000 years after the Sphinx was carved. The tablet tells a story. Thutmose fell asleep in the shadow of the Sphinx, and the god appeared to him in a dream, asking him to clear away the sand that had buried it. In exchange, the Sphinx promised to make him pharaoh. Thutmose did as asked, and he became one of Egypt's greatest rulers. Khufu's legacy. Did he achieve immortality? After approximately 23 years of construction, the Great Pyramid was completed around 2566 BCE. Khufu's magnificent tomb, his stairway to the stars, his guarantee of eternal life, stood finished. But here's the irony, the tragedy that makes this story so haunting. We know almost nothing about Khufu himself. For a man who built the greatest monument in human history, we have remarkably little information about his life, his personality, or his reign. There are no detailed historical records, no lengthy inscriptions describing his great deeds. The only confirmed image of Khufu that has ever been found is a tiny ivory statue, just 7.5 centimeters tall, discovered in the ruins of a temple far from Giza. That's it. The man who commanded 100,000 workers for over 2 decades, who organized the greatest construction project in ancient history, who built a monument that has stood for 4,500 years, is represented by a statue smaller than your hand. Ancient Greek historian Herodotus, writing 2,000 years after Khufu's death, painted him as a cruel tyrant who enslaved his people and bankrupted Egypt to build his pyramid. Herodotus claimed that Khufu closed all the temples, forbade religious worship, and forced his own daughter into prostitution to raise funds for construction. These stories are almost certainly false, propaganda or myths that grew over the centuries, but they stuck. For millennia, Khufu's reputation was that of an evil, megalomaniac pharaoh who sacrificed everything for his own vanity. Modern archaeology has given us a different picture. The workers' villages show that people were well fed and cared for. The graffiti shows pride in their work. The engineering shows genius and careful planning. Khufu didn't build the pyramid through cruelty. He built it through organization, ambition, and the devotion of his people. But his body, the physical vessel he worked so hard to preserve, is gone, robbed from his sarcophagus thousands of years ago, his treasures stolen, his name tarnished by Greek historians. Did Khufu achieve immortality? In one sense, absolutely. His name is known around the world. His pyramid still stands when countless kings and emperors have been forgotten. Millions of people visit Giza every year to see what he created. He has been remembered for 4,500 years and will likely be remembered as long as human civilization exists. But in the way he intended, in the ancient Egyptian religious sense, he failed. His body was not preserved. His journey to the afterlife was interrupted. According to ancient Egyptian belief, without your physical body, you cannot live forever in the realm of the gods. The other pyramids. Khufu's pyramid is the largest, but it's not alone. The Giza Plateau is home to 3 major pyramids, creating a complex that has fascinated visitors for millennia. The second pyramid was built by Khufu's son, Pharaoh Khafre. It appears taller than the Great Pyramid viewed from certain angles, but this is an illusion. Khafre's pyramid is built on slightly higher ground and has a steeper angle, but it's actually about 3 meters shorter than his father's pyramid. Still, at 136.4 meters, it's a breathtaking structure.
Khafre's pyramid is interesting because it still retains some of its original white limestone casing at the top, giving us a glimpse of what all the pyramids looked like when they were first built. That smooth, gleaming surface must have been an incredible sight. The third pyramid belongs to Pharaoh Menkaure, Khafre's successor. It's significantly smaller, only 65 meters tall, about half the size of the other two. Some historians believe that by the time Menkaure ruled, Egypt's resources were exhausted from building the first two pyramids. Others think that religious beliefs had changed, and pharaohs no longer felt the need to build such enormous tombs. Together, these three pyramids create one of the most iconic images in human history. They stand in a diagonal line, perfectly positioned on the desert plateau, with the Sphinx guarding them from the east. From certain angles, especially at sunrise or sunset, they create a view that has remained virtually unchanged for over 4,000 years. Modern discoveries and technologies. Today, archaeologists and scientists continue to study the pyramids using cutting-edge technology, and they're still finding new secrets. In 2017, scientists used cosmic ray muon radiography, a technique that detects particles from space passing through matter, to scan the Great Pyramid. They discovered a previously unknown void above the Grand Gallery, approximately 30 meters long. What is this space? Is it a hidden chamber? A structural feature? We don't know yet. The Egyptian government has been cautious about further exploration, wanting to preserve the pyramid's integrity. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed that there may be additional chambers and passages we haven't discovered yet. Some researchers believe there could be a hidden burial chamber for Khufus somewhere in the pyramid, still sealed and untouched since ancient times. In 2021, archaeologists discovered the remains of a workers' village that housed the craftsmen who built the pyramids. They found evidence of large-scale food production, medical care, and even signs of workers' compensation for injuries. One skeleton showed evidence of a traumatic leg amputation that had healed, meaning the worker received medical care and lived for years after the injury. This wasn't slavery. This was an organized, functional society taking care of its people. Modern engineers have used computer simulations to test various theories about how the pyramids were built. In 2018, researchers from the University of Liverpool discovered that the Egyptians might have used a system of wooden sledges on tracks, with workers pulling in rhythm to a chant or song. The synchronized pulling would create a resonance effect, making the load easier to move. Ancient Egyptian artwork shows workers pulling sledges in groups, suggesting this theory might be correct. The pyramid's influence in human history. The Great Pyramid has influenced human culture for thousands of years. The ancient Greeks listed it as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It's the only wonder still standing. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, the statue of Zeus at Olympia, the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, the Mausoleum at Halicarnassus, the Colossus of Rhodes, and the Lighthouse of Alexandria have all been destroyed or lost to time. Only the Great Pyramid remains. Napoleon Bonaparte visited the pyramids in 1798 during his Egyptian campaign. Standing before the Great Pyramid, he calculated that the 3 pyramids at Giza contained enough stone to build a wall around the entire country of France, 3 meters high and 1 meter thick. He was almost correct. Modern calculations confirm that the 2.3 million stone blocks could indeed build such a wall. The pyramids inspired the first true archaeologists. When Auguste Mariette began excavating at Giza in the 1850s, he established the principles of scientific archaeology that we still use today. Howard Carter, who discovered Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, was inspired by the pyramids as a young man. Even in modern times, the pyramids influence architecture. The Louvre Pyramid in Paris, the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas, the Slovak Radio Building in Bratislava all echo the form of the ancient pyramids. The shape is so iconic, so powerful, that it continues to resonate with us thousands of years.
The theories and controversies. No discussion of the pyramids would be complete without addressing the alternative theories, the controversies, and the outright bizarre claims that have surrounded these monuments for decades. Some people claim that aliens built the pyramids. Their reasoning? The pyramids are too perfect, too precise, too advanced for ancient humans to have built without modern technology. This theory is, frankly, insulting to the ancient Egyptians. It assumes that ancient people were somehow less intelligent than we are, which is completely false. They had the same brains, the same capacity for innovation, the same creativity. They just had different technology. The evidence against alien involvement is overwhelming. We've found the quarries where the stones came from. We've found the tools they used. We've found the workers' villages, the payrolls, the graffiti, the bread ovens, the beer breweries. We have letters from ancient officials complaining about delays in stone delivery. We have everything we need to understand that humans built the pyramids. Another theory suggests that the pyramids are much older than we think, perhaps 10,000 years old or more, built by a lost advanced civilization. This theory ignores all the archaeological evidence that firmly dates the pyramids to the 4th dynasty of Egypt, around 2600 to 2500 BCE. The pottery, the tools, the hieroglyphics, the architectural techniques, everything places the pyramids squarely in the Old Kingdom period. Some people believe the pyramids were power plants, using underground water flows to generate electricity. This theory misunderstands both ancient Egyptian culture and basic physics. The pyramid's internal structure doesn't support this idea, and we have extensive ancient Egyptian texts explaining exactly what pyramids were for, tombs and monuments to ensure the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife. The truth is much more interesting than any of these alternative theories. Humans built the pyramids. Clever, determined, organized humans who understood mathematics, astronomy, and engineering. They used copper tools, wooden sledges, human labor, and brilliant planning. The pyramids are a testament to what humanity can achieve when we work together towards a common goal. What we still don't know. Despite everything we've learned, the pyramids still hold mysteries. We don't know exactly how they lifted the heaviest blocks. We don't know what's behind the sealed door in the Queen's Chamber's shaft. We don't know if there are hidden chambers. We don't know what happened to Khufu's mummy or his treasures. We don't know why the descending passage leads to an unfinished chamber.
We don't know why the shafts from the Queen's chamber don't reach the surface. We don't know the full purpose of the 5 relieving chambers above the King's chamber. Are they purely structural, or did they have religious significance? We don't know how the ancient Egyptians achieved such incredible precision with copper tools. And perhaps most intriguingly, we don't know if we've discovered everything. The muon scan that revealed the void above the Grand Gallery suggests there might be more secrets waiting inside the pyramid, spaces that haven't been seen in over 4,500 years. The Eternal Monument. Today, the Great Pyramid of Giza stands as it has for over 4.5 millennia. The white limestone casing is mostly gone, revealing the yellow-brown core blocks beneath. The pyramidion, the capstone that once crowned the summit, has been lost to time. The smooth surfaces are now stepped, allowing brave visitors to climb partway up the exterior, though this is officially prohibited. But the pyramid endures. It has survived wars, earthquakes, sandstorms, and the rise and fall of countless civilizations. The ancient Egyptians who built it are gone. The Romans who marveled at it are gone. The Arab scholars who studied it are gone. The European archaeologists who excavated it have passed into history. But the pyramid remains. Every year, millions of people make the journey to Giza. They stand before this massive structure, craning their necks to see the top, trying to comprehend the scale of what ancient humans achieved. They walk through the narrow passages into the heart of the pyramid. They stand in the king's chamber where Pharaoh Khufu was meant to rest for eternity. And they ask themselves,
How? How did they do this? The Great Pyramid is Egypt's gift to humanity. It's proof of what we can accomplish. It's a message from our ancestors telling us that greatness is possible, that the impossible is merely difficult, that with vision, planning, and determination, humans can create something eternal. Khufu wanted to live forever. His body is gone, but in a way, he succeeded. As long as the pyramid stands, Khufu will be remembered. His name will be spoken. His achievement will be celebrated. The ancient Egyptians believed that to speak the name of the dead is to make them live again. Every time someone visits Giza, every time someone says Khufu, every time someone stands before the Great Pyramid in wonder, Pharaoh Khufu achieves a kind of immortality. Not in the way he imagined, not in the religious sense his priests promised, but in the memory of humanity. The final truth. So what is the real story of the Pyramids of Giza? It's not a story about aliens or lost civilizations or mysterious powers. It's a story about human beings, about a pharaoh who dreamed of immortality and mobilized an entire nation to achieve it, about 100,000 workers who, over the course of more than 2 decades, moved 2.3 million blocks of stone with nothing but rope, wood, and determination, about engineers who understood mathematics and physics thousands of years before those sciences had names, about a civilization so advanced, so organized, so ambitious, that they created something that still stands today. The pyramids are a mirror. When we look at them, we see reflections of ourselves. We see our capacity for greatness, our desire to be remembered, our need to create something that outlasts our brief time on Earth. Every stone in the Great Pyramid was placed by human hands. Every calculation was made by a human mind. Every decision, from the location to the angle to the smallest detail of its construction, reveals the dedication of people who believed they were building something larger than themselves.